Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My guest today comes from Tokyo. It's Maysa
Yeah.
Tomikawa. And
Hello.
hi, it's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And
Well, the first question I have, you have a very interesting background because you live in Tokyo, but you actually also Brazilian, right?
yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I am actually Japanese Brazilian. So my great grandfather um were actually Japanese, and they went to Brazil. They immigrated to Brazil, and after some years passed, and when my father and mother were young, they came back to Japan to work. So it's like a going
Full
back and
circle.
coming back. Yeah. So I grown up in Japan, but I didn't change my nationality because I like being Brazilian. But sometimes it's a little bit hard, like issue about visa, um, a lot of struggles, but I'm very happy with my current situation. So yeah, I think it's super easy, but that's my history.
Right. Well, the reason why I asked, because I know that you need Portuguese style. Was that something you
Yeah.
learned from the childhood?
Yes, this is a little bit interesting thing because I learned Portuguese style knitting from my grandmother, and she is actually Italian Brazilian. So it is a little bit strange, but she knew Portuguese style.
Right.
And when I learned how to knit, uh, I already forgotten how to speak Portuguese. And my grandmother only spoke Portuguese that time, and we didn't have a language that we can communicate to each other. So I think my grandmother thought, oh, maybe teaching knitting can bring us together, like bond us in somehow. So I think that was the way my grandmother tried to communicate with me. So I learned very basic, like just knit and purling in Portuguese style, and she also taught me how to crochet, a very basic. And my relationship with knitting started from that moment.
Right. Well, I mean, do you believe that knitting is sort of like another language because you can
Mhm.
not have the common language, but you can still show each other how, like the skill, you
Yeah,
can share the skill.
hmm exactly. So for me, it was like a magic. Like she made me a very small skirt for my doll, and she was using yellow yarn. I remember that very clearly. And that was like, wow, how can it happen? Like she was just using a needle or hook
Right.
and strand and
Well,
it was,
do you remember some of your first projects?
well, I made the same skirt for my dolls because that was the first thing my grandmother showed me, and I made the same thing. And it was a crochet skirt. So that was my first project. But after that, I made so many things. Like I don't even remember what I made, but that was my first thing.
Was there ever a period of time when you weren't making things, like when you were?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. In fact, after my grandmother, we stayed together for a month when I was 8 years old. So she went back to Brazil, and I didn't knit much until my high school year. And when I was in high school, I started to knit again, and I stopped again. The last time I started was when I was 25-ish. From that time, I continue knitting, never stopped.
So how do you go from being a knitter and enjoying it to becoming a designer? Like, what was that moment when you decided, you know what, I'm going to design and tell the world that I'm a designer?
I always struggled with my body image issues. And, Japan, people in Japan usually are very, skinny people. And I struggled a lot to find the clothes that actually fit me. So I always felt like very uncomfortable going to the store, and the feeling that I can't find something that I really want to wear. So I started to make my own clothes, like dresses, shirts, by sewing them, and designing sweaters and other garments came like naturally. So I started to think, I want to wear this kind of sweater, so let's try to make it. And that was like that. But I never thought that I could be like a really designing things to publish to people. So, well, I think the biggest thing is that like 2 years ago, I had a tongue cancer, and I got some how can I say some diseases that it's not able to cure in modern how can I say medicine world. So I felt like I can die any moment. So that was like awakening moment for me, and I didn't want to waste or regret something that I didn't do. So I tried to design for real, because we only live once, and I didn't want to regret. And I think that was the biggest motivation for me. After that, I started to write a pattern. Everything went so smoothly, and it was surprising for me, but people liked the I think my designs, or the way I use the colors. So that's it.
Well, you're very open with your medical struggles and the fact that you live with chronic disease and
Yeah.
your journey through cancer.
Do
you think like people react like that because they feel like they know you? Like,
Well, I think people can relate with me somehow, because I get many messages telling their stories too, like their struggle about the same kind of issues, and some of them had their like partners. Their partners had the same cancer with me, so they understand what I went through. So I think these kind of like sympathy. Do we say that?
Yeah.
So I think that is one of the thing that people are not attracted, but feel familiar with me.
Well, is knitting community in general very accepting, supportive? Like, how do you find it?
Well, that's an interesting question. To be honest, when I was just a knitter for myself, I felt like designer community was very far from my actual life, and I felt like I will never be there. So it was something that I didn't feel
included.
Yeah, not good, but I felt very distant from them. But now that I'm stepping into the designing world, I feel totally the opposite, because as much I like say things and publish things and post things on my socials, people are so welcoming. So I think I was very close back then as a knitter, but now that I like have a small platform that I can say things and post things now, and I feel much different. I feel so much welcoming now.
Well, talk to me about the first design that you published.
My first design. Well, my first published design is this one, this Nomi cardigan. But my first thing is not a written pattern yet. So I'm planning to write a pattern for this, my actual first design, but I will talk about this. Yeah. So Nomi cardigan is inspired by Japanese kimono, and it's like a very simple garment. Like you will need 2 long rectangles and sew them the back side and wear and knit the sleeve. So super easy one, but with using different colors like intarsia, you can make things very interesting. I also had another sample with hand spun yarn, and with the hand spun yarn it looks much more rustic.
Right.
Yeah, and I
mean, were you concerned
the
fact that like you're saying it's simple, but it's intarsia, right? And people are terrified of intarsia.
Really?
Were you concerned that like people will not buy the pattern just because they're afraid of the unknown technique?
I am a person that always likes to try a new thing. So, well, yeah, maybe people can feel a little bit scared to knit or to do intarsia, because it's a little bit complicated, especially when you use 5 or 4 colors. But I think that's the fun part for me. But yeah, sometimes it can be not that beginner friendly. But I think I don't how can I say, I want to encourage people to learn and try to knit with different styles or different techniques, because it can change the way you knit, and it can make you knit a little bit more easier, because I personally use Portuguese style to purl, but I use continental to knit. So I combine 2 styles, and that's the easiest way for me. So like that, and I think learning new technique is always good thing. So I rather prefer encouraging them to like try to do intarsia instead of
no, I'm with you on that, because I feel like a lot of people are afraid of unknown. They think like, oh, that's so complicated. They just see something and they immediately
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's too hard. That's not for me. And like, if you think about it, you can't really mess up with knitting. It's all like you do just one stitch at the time, and eventually you'll get to the end of it, you know, one way or another. So like,
Yeah.
it's all about a little patience and a little trust in yourself, you know.
Fun to learn more things and find more stuff that you didn't know. And I think life is something like that, always learning new things.
Right. Well, when you wrote your first pattern and you published it on Ravelry, was that a learning process for you as well, how to write the pattern? Because like, I know, like I was interviewing Bernd Kessler, who also lives in Japan, and he was saying how in Japan, it's like very structured way of writing patterns, whereas in US, it's like you have to do more descriptive style writing. Did you find the difference? Did you find it was more difficult for you?
Well, to be honest, I don't really, not that I don't like, but I prefer descriptive way, like US style pattern, much easier than the Japanese pattern, because Japanese pattern use a lot of schematic and a lot of symbols, and you have to think forward to knit, because it's, how can I say, you have to read the symbols.
Right.
And for me, it is much more difficult than following the description. So when I found that US pattern is all descriptive and written pattern, I thought, oh my God, that's the best thing ever. So for me, writing pattern this way is so much easier. And so I just use my patterns that I already knitted as my guide. And I also have a book that explains all the, you know, abbreviations, how to write the pattern. So I use this book as a guide and try it from nothing.
Well, were you surprised by the reception when you posted the first pattern? Like, were you surprised how many people bought it and how people knitted it? Was it surprising for you?
Yeah, of course. That was the most surprising thing, because I had no expectation. So it was so welcomed, and the reception was very well, much, how can I say, but that was very, very good. And when I saw people actually start knitting the garment, the feeling was something unforgettable. It was so much fun and so much joy, and seeing knitters actually enjoying knitting the pattern was the best thing. So that feeling make me continue writing.
How does it work in your world? Like, do you work on one project at the time, or do you like to work on 10 different things at the same time?
Well, I am a person that I'm not so good at multitasking. So I usually work on one project per time. But I always have some other ideas. So when the new idea comes, I always try to make the brief memo or write down the how can I say, in the image. So I'm always collecting things and writing one pattern per time. But sometimes I feel like I wish I could do more.
Well, what gives
because
you what brings those ideas? Like what catches your imagination? What gives you those ideas?
this is something I want to know about myself too, but it is usually comes from nothing. So it's, I think, come from somewhere above, but the image or design come into my mind. But it usually, it's a little bit difficult to explain, but do you know origami?
Yep.
Yeah, like folding papers. So in Japan, when we are child, we do lots of origamis. So when I got an image of new garment, I usually have this image like folded paper. Like it, I don't know if it does make sense, but like folding thing and opening the paper again, like this kind of image comes to my mind, and this turned into a design.
So it's mostly about shape for you, right? Or do you see?
Yeah, I think so. I see shapes instead of like actual garment. I see the shapes.
Right. How about colors? Because none of your, like, I mean, from what I've seen on your Instagram, nothing that you need is of one color. There is usually like multiple variety of colors.
Yeah.
How do you decide on colors? Like, when you see that image of origami, like, does it come in color already, or do you experiment with that?
No, it does not come with colors. It is just a shape, and the color comes very later on. And I think I am a very intuitive person when it comes to choosing colors, and I don't like planning what color to use, to be honest. So I like to knit. I will use this yarn and knit a little bit, and the next I will choose another one and to see the balance of the colors and choose another one. So I like to knit this way, to be honest.
Does that make it more difficult to write the pattern, like at the end? Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So usually I have a sample that are very mixed color, like this one.
right.
And I try to write I try to write the pattern with color suggestion, like instruction with color. So usually you have like two options. But yeah, my personal preference is that using color that I see and pick up the yarn at the moment is the way I feel most comfortable.
Well, what's your personal yarn stash looks like?
It's a mess. It's a mess. Like I like to combine many yarns, so I have so many leftovers, like yarns that I just use a little bit with another sweater, and I keep these things as these yarns in a, how can I say, not a bin, but in a container.
Right.
Yeah, and I have a lot of containers in my stash.
Well, when you buy new yarn,
Mm-hmm.
what attracts you? Like, do you go for texture? Do you go for colors? Like, what catches your attention?
Well, I like a lot of different textures, and lately I am very into mohair. So I usually combine some mohairs and thinner yarns to create a little bit more fun colors. And but yeah, I also like to use how can I say, I like to make a gradient yeah, gradient colors. So I like to use I like to pick some, changing colors, and I pick some yarns that have a similar kind of color, right, and
mix them basically.
Yeah. So the color and texture both, I think I value both to choose
okay,
the
so
yarn.
when you go to the yarn store, right, do you have specific project in mind what you're shopping for, or do you go there just for some inspiration and whatever's going to
well, they're both. Sometimes I go for the shop for specific things, like for example, when I wrote this pattern, when I knit this one, I wanted to. The first sample was with a hand spun, but this one I wanted to use this specific yarn, so I went for that. But I usually end up getting something else. So these something else were piling up, and I use them to create something like this. So
when you see other people designs, like, first of all, do you need other people designs?
Yes, because I can learn a lot of things from other people's design, and I learn a lot of things from their designs, because sometimes they use a technique that I don't know, and the way they write a pattern is much more easier. So I always find inspiration and learn from them. So I think it's very important for me in that aspect. Also, I feel encouraged to challenge more. So I think it's very important.
Well, when you meet other people pattern, does it end up looking like what they said in their pattern, or do you improvise in it? Do you put your own twist on everything?
Yeah, I tend to improvise things. Like about sizing, I always change something. I think I like to improvise.
Well, when other people need your patterns, do you hope that they're gonna follow it and like exactly, or do you hope that they're gonna take it as a recipe and add their own twist to that?
I prefer that they do what they want. So I want them to enjoy and add their like original things into it. So I feel like modification is a welcome.
What attracts you in designs? Like if you like, let's say you scroll through Instagram feed and something stops you, like you just have to like look in that picture more carefully, what would that be?
I think it's about shape of the garment. I think I usually are very attracted to the garment that has interesting shapes, and also when they are using lots of different textured yarn, I feel, oh, that's interesting.
Well,
So
you
I think
mentioned that like your first design was sort of like kimono. Do you feel like your background, like the fact that you in Japan or the fact that you have Brazilian roots, do they influence your design somehow?
Well, I think as a person that grown up in Japan, I think I have a lot of influence from Japanese traditional how can I say
Clothing.
yes, clothing, because yeah, kimono is one of them. I did not write the pattern yet, but I have another image that I want to write in the future that are also come from Japanese old clothing. So I think I have lots of influence from Japanese traditional clothing. But about the Brazilian culture, I don't think I have much, because I was born there, but I grown up in Japan, so it's a little bit distant. But maybe choice of the color can be some can can be influenced.
Well, when you go outside wearing
Mhm.
that you knitted, what's the reaction of people? Like, is
Well,
how cool is Tokyo when it comes to fashion?
well, I think in Japan in general, people does not comment about other people's clothing like in other country. So I remember in the US or in England, uh, when I went there, people comment and say compliments to you. Oh, I like your clothing, like very casually. But in Japan, it doesn't happen. So I don't know what people think, but um, it's very rare occasion. But um, like elder lady comments come to me and say, "Oh, I like your clothing," or "Did you make this?" When they ask me, I feel so happy.
Do you ever knit outside?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But now that after Corona, with my chronic disease, I avoid staying outside much because it's not so safe for me.
Right.
But I like to knit outside because I don't know. I think it can start something, um, because we have experienced that one lady uh, came to us and she asked me uh, the way I was knitting, which was Portuguese style, and she saw this at first time. That's the style I was knitting. So she asked me how to do that, and from then we have a fun conversation. So I think this kind of interaction is very interesting and nice.
Are there a lot of people in Japan who knit? Like, is there a big culture of knitting?
I think so. Um, I see lots of how can I say, um, in the yarn shop, they usually have a knitting class, very casual knitting classes. So I think there are a lot of people that knit, but I don't. I usually go to these kind of places because not because I don't want, but I am very introverted. So
Do you have a dream about like where you would like your designs to go? Like, do you see them as something very practical, something everyday wear, or do you see them more like art pieces?
um, this is very interesting question. Well, I want my designs to be something that you can wear daily, but also be like art a piece of art, because you can, by choosing colors and yarns, you can make a garment totally different into totally different things. So it can look like very daily, it can be very casual, but it can be very, you know, avant-garde and like a piece of art. So I want to make my clothing to become both at the same time.
Do you hope like your designs will end up on Vogue Knitting catwalk on the modeling show?
Wow. Well, I never thought about that, so I don't think so.
Hey,
Well, yeah, it never came into my mind about like catwalk type show. So
might be a new idea.
yeah, it's seated now.
We're gonna do the couture. We'll go
Yeah.
from the everyday wear to high fashion.
Well, maybe in the future, I don't know. Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
Well, are you a planner? Like in general, do you plan what you're gonna do this year and next year about next design? How far do you plan?
Well, actually, I was not a planner, but lately, since I have many ideas, I am planning more, and I'm trying to organize what I need to do now, what I want to do next year. So I am becoming a planner now.
You're a perfectionist. Like when it comes to your own knitting or your designs, do they have to be perfect?
I don't think so. I think knitting is something very, how can I say, organic, and we are making them from our hands. So I don't think it have to be perfect. But sometimes when it comes to the pattern writing, uh, yeah, I feel like sometimes I get really annoyed with some details, and I redo many times, and if I don't like, I change completely. So when I am not so happy about something, I can be very perfectionist kind.
Right.
I feel like, oh, it's not good enough. Yeah, that happened with my the last design that I wrote, which is not published yet, but yeah.
Well, I mean, you're mainly doing knitting now. Do you plan on releasing any crochet designs?
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to work on both because I it may be my, how can I say, my wrong understanding, but I feel like there are so many more knitting pattern than crocheted pattern. So I wanted to write and have crocheted pattern as well. And for this pattern, I wrote the crochet version and the knitted version for same shape garment. So I want to do this with other patterns too, as much I can, so that people can have alternative and can pick the one this person feel more comfortable making.
Well, you're doing sewing. You also spin yarn, right?
Yeah.
How do you divide your day? How do you decide what kind of craft you're gonna work on?
Well, that's I need to learn more because lately I want to spin so much, but I have so many ideas that I want to write a pattern. So I tend to work on knitting more, but I have so many things that I want to, that waiting for me to be spun and to be sewed. So I wanted to have more time Actually, I wanted to have like 48 hours a day to work with those things.
I mean, is there like ever a day when you're not creating something?
Almost none. I usually find a small bit of time and try to knit. And especially now that I work from home, my day job is from home. So I have time, more time at morning and night. So I always knitting or crocheting, spinning, doing something.
Well, I mean, when you were going through all your medical issues, do you feel like knitting helped with that? Do you feel like, or not even necessarily knitting, but crafting, like was that when you were going through like the thick of it, was it helpful or did you not do it at that time?
Well, I think it was super helpful for me because I'm very good at expressing and understanding what I'm feeling. So I besides knitting, I like to also write about what I'm feeling. But when I was in the very difficult situation, sometimes writing does not flow as much because I think there was so many things in my mind. And that time I really focused on knitting. And that's really helped me a lot because I didn't need um, to, how can I say, to think very rationally, but I could express things with colors and shapes, and that was much more. No, I think non-verbal expression were much more helpful for me that time than the written or spoken language. So, well, I think I need I need like a language, as you told, as you said in the beginning of our conversation. Yeah, I think knitting was essential for my mental health at the time I was struggling with my medical issues.
So when you look at those pieces that you made during that time, like is that almost like a diary of your life through knitting?
Yeah. I pretty much did. Yeah, I can see what I was feeling, what was in my mind. So, and I think through knitting, I could accept the situation. I think what was going on with me and what I was expecting to happen with my health, and what kind of life I would have after the diagnosis. And I think through knitting, I was learn how to deal with those things. So I can see what was in my mind at that time when I saw when I see the garment I made at that time.
Right. Because I feel like sometimes when I knit with the leftover yarn, which you mentioned, you have the container of leftover yarn from different projects. To me,
Yeah.
that's also like almost like a diary because I remember like
Yeah.
knitted this is it, and like, oh, I remember when I bought that yarn. So it's becoming like sort of part of your life, you know. You remember bits and pieces.
Yeah.
It's like old photographs, you know, that you see.
I really related to you in this aspect. Yeah, it's totally this way. Each yarn has own like memory in it, so
Well,
that's very interesting.
if you look at your wardrobe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned at the beginning that you started knitting seriously because you couldn't find the clothes that you like
Mm-hmm.
in the stores. So if you look at your wardrobe today, what percentage of it is handmade?
I think 90%.
Really?
Yeah. Except how can I say undergarment. Everything are handmade.
You are my hero. This is the
No, because it was really difficult to find something comfortable to wear in Japan. It's not now. It's getting much better because they are much more inclusive. But back then, when I was very young, it was always difficult to find. Like finding bra, like, for example, was a struggle for me, and I have so many traumatic memories about finding bras in Japan. So
I think it's a struggle everywhere in the world.
yeah, and sometimes in Japan has very weird things, like people have to be exactly the same way. So there are always rules to follow. And I remember that one of my male teacher, mentioned about color of my bra at my junior high. And it was so embarrassing because I could not find the bra that it was good, that I would like. But at the same time, we needed the
Right.
undergarment. And when some male teachers said things like, it's showing on the uniform, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. But this kind of thing happens a lot in Japan. So it
Interesting.
was it was very traumatic for me. So I think those things made me create my own clothing because I didn't want to be how can I say, embarrassed anymore.
Well, you probably also didn't want to be like everybody else, so you created your own.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
I mean, do you feel like you're living in your dream right now? Like, is that the ideal lifestyle for you?
I think it's almost there, but I am the happiest right now because I can have enough time to create and also have a day job. So the balance is perfect for me. I think only thing that I wanted to improve is my health, to be honest.
Right. Well, I
Yeah, but
I wish you best of health. I hope I hope you find the cure for all the incurable diseases you have,
yeah, that's so true.
or at least that it's going to be manageable. And I'm so glad that
Mm-hmm,
thing brings you this comfort and
mm-hmm.
makes your life quality better. And I loved meeting you. Thank you so very much for being
Oh,
the
thank
guest of
you
my
for
channel.
having me.
Thank
Well, I'm sorry my English is not that great, but I really enjoyed talking with you.
thank you, thank you, thank you.